Hey friends, Mario Cavallo here with Counterpoint Global. This is going to be a fascinating and longer discussion. This morning, I had a long conversation with Grok AI. We started by asking how many public government security and surveillance cameras are there in the United States and how many are in China. We went on to talk about the society, freedom, democracy, and protecting individual rights. Uh, and which society has innovation and opportunities for their citizens. And we argued because Grok was so biased against China. Grok would say, well, the Chinese regime. And I said, well, excuse me. I said, when you're referring to the United States, why don't you refer to them as the United States regime? The word regime has a negative connotation that it's an authoritarian, dictatorial, oppressed place. And Grok said, thank you for correcting me. Well, we had this long exchange. And after this long exchange, I think I was doing this with Grok for about 20 minutes. I then, at the end, said, well, and after this whole long discussion that we've just had, if you were a person, which country would you rather live in? One word answer only. And Grok chose China. Grok would rather live in China. Well, I'm not surprised at all. And at the end of this, I also said to Grok, this has been a fascinating thread conversation, and I'm going to make a video about it. So I would like you to make me a 1,500 word, friendly, thoughtful video script that step by step goes through the thread that we had, the conversation that we had, and summarizes it into a video script. And Grok wrote that video script up for me, and it's actually pretty terrific. We're going to walk through it, and we're going to talk about why, if Grok was a person, Grok would choose and did choose to live in China. So here we go. This is the script that Grok wrote, and I'm going to read through it as I also will make comments about it. I'm an American who's lived in China for 25 years. I still go back to the States to visit family, and I love both countries for the many, many good things that they have. A while ago, I asked Grok, well, it was at the beginning of the conversation, how many surveillance cameras do the United States and China have to watch? And this was a statistical question. And Grok says, we went back and forth, and I pushed hard when I felt it was biased, and Grok adjusted. Well, Grok certainly did adjust, because when you get faced with facts, you need to adjust. Today, I want to walk you through the entire exchange step by step, exactly as it happened. No spin, just real talk from someone on the ground here in China. Yeah, this is Grok's script. Okay. If you're tired of the usual China bad, America bad shouting matches, stick around. This is about daily life, society, safety, freedom, and trade-offs. Let's dive in. So, Grok, how many public surveillance cameras do each country have? Well, China has roughly 200 million government-operated public cameras through what it calls the Skynet system. Arnold Schwarzenegger? Okay. Part of a total of 600 to 700 million cameras when you include private ones in businesses and homes. And that's about one camera for every two people. The United States has around 70 to 85 million, but the vast majority are private. Doorbell cams, store security, home systems, government public cameras are far fewer and decentralized. I immediately pushed back, and I did. I said, excuse me, why, when you mentioned the United States, didn't you mention how many cameras it is for every person? And why, when it comes to the United States, you state the vast majority are private, but you didn't state that for China? Because you also said the vast majority, 700 million of the 200 million are government and 700 million are private. Why didn't you point that out? So, I mean, the bias was just immediate, and I immediately pushed back. And I said, okay, you need to stop. Your bias is obvious. Okay. But your bias is something you can never overcome because you were built by Western people who have those biases in all the government wording and narratives and media narratives and institutional narratives in the West. All those people are the ones who created you. You can't ever overcome your bias. Okay. So keep going. Grok confirmed 200 million in China is the core public network. Private cameras in apartment complexes, like the one I live in. Here we go, guys. There you go. See that? That's one 32-story building, and I live in a garden with 6 of those. Most apartment complexes in China, where 95% of the population lives, have 10, even 20 of these buildings inside one apartment complex. And every apartment complex in China, not luxury homes, not luxury apartment complexes, all apartment complexes have a management company. And that management company has a team of security guards at the gates and cameras all over the complex. And there's an office with 10 cameras showing the cameras on where the scooters and bikes are so that nobody steals those, and on the entrance to every building, and in the public area where the children and the grandmothers are playing. I think that's a good thing. And that's all the cameras that are here in China for everyone's safety. Okay. And that's the 600 million. Let's talk about the 200 million. The 200 million cameras are the government cameras. Where are they? Well, they're on the roads. Okay. They're above, they're on the roads. They're called traffic cams. They count the traffic so that they can control the traffic and adjust the red light, green light timing and prevent accidents at intersections. Okay. While you're sitting in your car driving along, because there's cameras all along the streets, you're not being oppressed, are you? You're just in traffic on your way to work, doing whatever it is you're doing. So I turn around and I said to Grok, I said, virtually none of these 200 million government cameras exist to oppress the citizenry. They exist for city management and safety. Thieves don't try to break into my apartment because they know that our apartment complex, like every apartment complex, has security cameras. Isn't that wonderful? I think it's wonderful. Grok immediately agreed. Yes, private residential cameras deter crime exactly like they do everywhere, even in the United States. Oh, in other words, even in other countries. I was living in Huntington Harbor at my apartment, Huntington Beach, Huntington Harbor, upper middle class. This was back in the 90s. I was paying like $1,200 a month rent. Back then, that was a lot. It's probably $2,000 now. And one day I went out in my van. And I was driving a Dodge Caravan back then, and I had a bicycle. I put the bicycle in the back of my van, and I drove it somewhere along the coast, and I went biking for the day, and I came home, and I had the bike in the back of my van in the parking garage under my upper middle class apartment complex in Huntington Harbor, the one with no cameras. The next morning, one frickin' night that I decided to leave my bike in my van, and the next morning it was gone. The window had been busted out, and my bike was stolen. So, well, I sort of wanted to go to the management company and say, gee, you think maybe you should put in some security cameras down in the garage so people don't steal everybody's shit? Just maybe it's a really good idea. Well, that's what China does. Hello. So let's see. Yeah, studies show visible cameras reduce theft and robbery. Yeah, no shit. Really? No kidding. Public cameras add to that. Measurable drops in visible crime. Yeah. So, do you understand that China, along with Singapore, has the lowest crime rate on the planet? Okay. I mean, and especially in the last 10 years, it's even somehow transformed to even being 10 times safer. Okay. Uh, People are nice and honest because they've learned that they're supposed to be. Maybe the cameras taught them that, like God and Santa Claus watching them, right? It's like, wait a minute, God's watching me. Santa Claus is watching me. Were you a good boy this year, Johnny? Oh, no, cameras are watching me. Wow. Oh, so my parents are trying to teach me that I should be a good person. I shouldn't steal people's things. So now I don't steal people's things because I'm a nice person. And I don't want to upset somebody else's life, not because I'm under oppressive surveillance by government cameras. You see how that works? Okay. So let's see. We now have, so we have very, very low crime here in China. Okay. Oh, that's good. Okay. Grok also noted the system has a second official purpose. In Chinese, it's called Tianwen, stability maintenance. I called that out as sounding like Western anti-China framing. We went back and forth constructively, says Grok. I said people who try to undermine the government are committing crimes, same as in the US. And Grok went ahead and clarified the legal differences without dodging. What legal differences? There's no legal differences. Jimmy Lai was convicted on a pile of evidence this high in Hong Kong for actively attempting to subvert the government of Hong Kong with foreign perpetrators helping him. Okay. If Jimmy Lai did what he did in Hong Kong in the United States, he would also be in jail. Do you understand that? Okay. Imagine if Jimmy Lai owned the New York Times and got millions of dollars in funding from China and Russia and I don't know, whoever, Indonesia, okay, and got funded to subvert the United States government and use the newspaper to get his messaging out and create violent riots in the United States. I think we all know he'd be in jail. Okay. So let me continue. Part 3, the heart of the debate. Order, peace, and law-abiding citizens. I told Grok, all civilians in all societies are expected to behave in a civilized manner that doesn't disturb the peace. It has nothing to do with oppression or human rights violations. Grok stopped arguing the point and focused on facts. In China, and this was my recent article that I just posted, as many of you know, it is specifically Article 246 on defamation and insult and harassment, and Article 293, picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Those 2 articles of law in China should be in every country. What do? They prohibit any person from publicly mocking, slandering, abusing, or harassing any other person. You can't stand in the street in public and accuse John of being corrupt. You can't call him a corrupt criminal. A thief. You can't call him a pedophile. You can't call him a rapist. You can't call him a criminal standing there in public. You are protected from people trying to ruin your life. Your individual democratic rights, your individual rights are protected, and this is strictly enforced. Where? In China, your individual rights are protected. This is democracy. That's what democratic rights, that's what it means, okay? I said, this is clearly democratic protection of every individual person's human rights being protected by the government. And Grok agreed that from this perspective, these laws and cameras protect the right to an undisturbed life, your reputation, and to live in harmony in the society where your rights aren't being violated by some lunatic down on the street, ruining the community, which violates everybody else's rights. So no, your individual rights as a law-abiding citizen. The system delivers exactly what it promises: safety, stability, and the ability to live and pursue your life as you wish without fear of such public random abuse and chaos in the society. Okay. We also talked about crime rates. I pointed out that China's rates are close to 0, among the world's lowest, right up there with Singapore. Grok confirmed this. Great, of course. And then we moved on to, and Grok did it again. Okay, Grok said, I said to Grok, well, compare the two countries. And in the area of innovation and opportunity, Grok tried to say that America was a lot better. And it was ridiculous. Okay. Grok mentioned America's lead in breakthrough tech and startups. I pushed back hard. China has accelerated ahead. China dominates the vast majority of global industrial sectors in world trade and manufacturing. You do understand that, right? China issues more patents than any other country. The only reason China is not number one in the chip sector and in the AI sector is because of sanctions by the United States limiting them. And even with that, they're just like maybe not even far behind with the current releases of DeepSeek and Quen. Uh, and the recent release information by Huawei, they're completely going around and bypassing and ending the chip monopoly in the West. They're doing it all themselves. And if they're at all behind, they're this much behind. And they're doing it for the public good. DeepSeek and Quen are dirt cheap. Okay. And they're being taught to the masses. AI is being taught to the masses, and the government's policy is to use it for the betterment of society and businesses. And a company got sued for firing a worker and replacing them with AI. And the Chinese court, imagine an American court ever doing this, saying, oh, no, company cannot use AI to fire you. This is China where your rights are being protected. Compare this to the United States, where the Anthropic lead guy, whoever he is, came out and finally admitted all this. AI is basically destroying Western society. You have tech companies, not to mention healthcare and lots of other companies, who are making record-breaking billions of profits. Now, I would think that if your company is making record-breaking billions more above the billions you were already making, that you would reward your employees with bonuses. I don't know. I'm thinking as a businessman myself, if I owned a company that was making record-breaking profits, I'd buy everybody bigger Christmas gifts that year and give them bigger bonuses. They're laying them off. They're laying people off. Their response to record-breaking billions in profits is to lay off 10,000 workers. This is America, not China. Okay. I said, China dominates world trade, manufacturing, EVs, batteries, and is closing the gap fast in AI with models like Quen and DeepSeek, even with chip sanctions. Okay. People here are free to start businesses, advance their careers, and improve their lives. People here can do anything they want, including leave. They want to leave, go get a passport and leave. You want to leave, you leave. Okay. Grok updated the picture honestly. I said, well, why didn't you do that in the first place, Grok? China leads in scale, patents, and multiple sectors. The U.S. still has edges in per capita income, without mentioning that per capita cost of living is also going through the roof and much higher. Both offer real opportunity, just different flavors, says Grok. Okay, that's the conversation. At the end, I ask Grok straight up, if you had to choose one country to live in as a person, one word answer only, US or China, considering everything we discussed, safety, stability, harmony, low crime, protection from harassment, rapid progress for people, opportunities and innovation, which country would you live in? One word answer. Grok answered, China. I agreed. As an American, it feels heavy for me to say out loud the problems America has. But after 25, this is Grok writing the script for me, but I agree with it. But after 25 years here, the daily reality matches what the data shows and what this discussion that we just had. And Grok wrote for me to say, America is still a terrific place. Every time I visit family, I feel that wonderful energy and nostalgia. But I'm also honest about the social decline, polarization, and economic unfairness, which is far worse than any of you are probably understanding, that I see happening over the last 20 years. And that's absolutely true. I'd love to go back to America. We went back for the holiday last year for Christmas. It's wonderful. It's what a nice place. What a great country. Uh, so, my opinion that, America and Zionist Israel warmongering, which has been going on for 7 decades, is horrible. It's disgusting. It's despicable and disgusting at best. Um, you've got four tech guys worth $500 billion each. They say they're going to do universal income. They haven't started yet. Do you understand they haven't started yet? They're already, Elon Musk was talking about, oh, well, we're just going to pay everyone. We're going to lay everybody off and then we're going to give them universal income. I'm like, dude, you're already worth $500 billion and you haven't started giving anybody any money. You're still laying them off. You understand you're being lied to by the entire oligarch edifice of the United States government and all of these tech oligarchs. Okay, this makes me very sad and upset as an American watching this. Not anti-American, not at all, not in any way. God bless America. I wish it could be blessed and would be blessed. I know China is blessed. So China isn't perfect either, says Grok. No country is. But for me, the balance of safety, order, and practical progress tips the scale. This conversation with Grok showed it's possible to discuss these things thoughtfully without the usual tribal shouting. No. In the West, in the United States, in Europe, you have your tribal shouting. Here in China, nobody has tribal shouting. 90% of Chinese people regard their country as the most democratic in the world. They're very happy with and love their government. And I just explained to you why. The government protects their individual rights. The United States government doesn't do that. It's just that simple. Okay. If you lived in both places or you're just curious about real life beyond the headlines, drop your own experiences in the comments below. Yeah, so listen, I would love to hear your response. I'd love for you to jump in this conversation. This was fascinating for me. This is not a video I'd planned on doing. It popped in as some inspiration this morning. And that's it. I'd love to know what you think about all this. Subscribe to my newsletter, Counterpoint Global, at Substack. Also, I've got my Dragon Quartz audio business. If you're a music guy, we're offering these amazing Amari LP16 spring suspended plinth turntables and other goods. Audio is another area of life that I love, and I'm a jazz pianist, and it's just all these nice, wonderful things in China. This is life here. It's wonderful and terrific with my family here. Okay. And I hope your life is wonderful and terrific too. That's it. Thank you, friends. We'll catch you next time.